The Forsaken Heir. Previous episodes are available on playlist, a link is given in the video description. Episode 6. Charlie said angrily at this time, "Fatty, do you think it's okay not to speak? You have to know, this is Aurous Hill. Which of these people who were deceived by you is not rich? Hooking fingers can let you stay in Aurous Hill. There is no place for burial. I advise you to be acquainted and take the time to tell the truth, otherwise, no one can save you." Warnia knew that Charlie was launching a psychological offensive, and immediately cooperated with him, saying with a black face, "Our Song family is a big family with a bit of face in Aurous Hill. If anyone dares to deceive the Song family, our Song family must have it. Give him a profound lesson. If we are soft and spread, the family's face will be affected." The fat man was frightened suddenly. He knows how high your Song family is. If he really angers Warnia, he will probably die in Aurous Hill. So he was panicked, and hurriedly shouted at Chi Lao desperately, "Chi Lao, save me! This is not my own business." Old Key face changed suddenly and he roared, "What are you talking nonsense? You lied to the Song family and framed me. I want your life." After all, Chi Lao took out a dagger from his pocket, a cold light flashed in his eyes and immediately pounced on the fat man. The fat man's eyes were cracked, and he cursed, "You turn your face faster than a book. You obviously told me that Ms. Warnia relies on your mouth. As long as you say yes, this thing will be sold. You hurt me so much." Warnia gave them a cold look, and then said to Charlie, "Mr. Charlie just laughed, thanks to you today, let's leave, these people, our family will send someone to clean up these people." Charlie nodded slightly and said, "Okay, then go back." After all, the two got up and prepared to leave. Seeing that Warnia was about to leave, Chi Lao was shocked, and he didn't care about killing the fat man. He knelt on the ground and said, "Miss, please forgive me. For the sake of my hard work and work in the Song family for so many years, forgive me." This time before Warnia spoke, Taylor stood up and sneered, "You old thing is really looking for death. You want to be master of the game, and you can get 2 or 3 billion. Do you think the Song family can spare you?" Old Chi was pale and sat slumped on the ground. Taylor continued, "Even if the Song family forgave you, I, Taylor, will never forgive you." Old Chi suddenly collapsed and cried, and the whole person has completely collapsed. Seeing this, Warnia shook her head slightly, and said to Charlie, "I'm so sorry, Mr. Charlie, my family made a mistake, you read a joke." Charlie said calmly, "There are treacherous villains everywhere, Miss Song doesn't have to say that." At this time, Taylor from Hiken took Guoming and Qin Gang from the Aurous Hill Qin family, all came out. Seeing Charlie, Taylor immediately stepped forward to Charlie and said, "Mr. Wade, thanks to you today, otherwise, Li will be fooled by this thief." Guoming next to him also said with some shame, "Mr. Wade is really a hero, and the old master just didn't see through the articles they wrote on Jade, ashamed." Qin Gang also arched his hand and said, "Mr. Charlie, thanks to you today, otherwise the 3 of us who robbed the head and robbed it was a fake. Let alone the heavy losses, I am afraid that people will laugh out loud." Charlie smiled slightly and said faintly, "You are welcome, I was originally invited by Miss Song to come here to verify the authenticity of things, so this is also my business." After everyone was done speaking, Charlie got into the car with Warnya. At this time, there was silence in the courtyard behind him. But Charlie could see that as soon as everyone left with their front feet, several people in black suits walked in quickly. It seems that Chi Lao and the fat man are in a disaster. In the car, Warnya's expression has always been cold. For her, she was very angry with a rude person in the family, and what was even more annoying was that this Uncle Chi wanted to set a situation for him in front of so many outsiders. If you were fooled in today's affairs, given the money, and Uncle Chi also escaped, if you find yourself cheated in the future, you will lose your face and the entire Song family. Fortunately, Charlie was present, lighting up the mystery in time and avoiding the loss of himself and his family. So, she took out a bank card from the glove box in the car, handed it to Charlie, and said, "Mr. Charlie, there are 1 million in this card, and the code is 68, which is a little bit of mine. Please accept it with your heart." As she spoke, she couldn't help sighing. Charlie still seemed to be a little real to learn. She didn't know why she chose to join a small family. If he comes out to engage in the antique appraisal by himself, he can save a lot of family business after a few years. Charlie looked at the card in her hand and hesitated slightly. 1 million is not a small amount, but it just drizzles to the Song family. Charlie didn't look down on this 1 million. After all, he still had more than 9.9 billion in his card, and this 1 million was just a drop in the bucket. What's the point of accepting it? But when he thinks about it carefully, he's not a trillionaire. The son-in-law of the Wilson family. For a son-in-law, if he is not interested in seeing 1 million, it will definitely make Warnya puzzled, so he directly took the card and said, "Thank you, Miss Song." Warnya smiled slightly. Mr. Charlie is polite. After speaking, Warnya asked again, "Where is Mr. Charlie going next?" Charlie smiled and said, "Send me to the vegetable market. I have to buy vegetables and go home to cook." Warnya was stunned, and couldn't help saying, "I also heard about Mr. Charlie. To be honest, Mr. Charlie has such a skill. There is no need to let a son-in-law be attached to her. It is better to come to my Jikingtang. As the chief appraiser, I will give you a basic salary of 1 million every year, what do you think?" Charlie waved his hand and said with a smile, "I am a person, my teeth are not good, and I am used to eating leftovers." Warnya was startled slightly and then sighed. It seems that the rumors in the market are really good. This Charlie is just a son-in-law who eats soft rice. I used to think that he was just a rubbish, and it was a helpless act for rubbish to eat soft rice, which was understandable. But now it seems that he is not a waste, but a waste of self-willing depravity. This really made her unacceptable. Immediately, her attitude towards Charlie also changed somewhat. Charlie knew that she would look down on him a little bit, but this was the best way for him so that everyone could guess him wrong, and he would have the last laugh. Passing by the vegetable market, Charlie got off and said goodbye to Warnya, and then bought some vegetables and went home. But as soon as he walked in, Charlie heard the old master laughing wildly while shouting, "Ha ha ha, come! Come and see the baby I found." Claire also got off work and was sitting on the sofa reading documents. At this moment, she couldn't help standing up and said to Jacob, who was laughing, "Dad, you almost scared me to death. Look at this." Jacob didn't notice Claire's expression at all. He happily held a pair of palm-sized celadone cups and held them in a show-off manner. "This is the blue and white chicken bowl I found from the antique market. I heard that it was picked up from the coffin of Emperor Gandhi, and it was worth more than 500,000. More than $500,000. Claire stood up suddenly and blurted out, "Dad, where did you get so much money?" Charlie was so helpless that he broke the Yahuchun bottle in the morning. Taking advantage of his time to go out, did this old master go to Antique Street again? This is the typical mindset. The scars forget the pain. Jacob laughed and said mysteriously, "I mean, this cup is worth $500,000. Guess, how much did I buy?" Claire hesitated for a moment, and tentatively said, 300,000. "No. Guess again." Jacob waved his hand. 200,000. "That's not right." Charlie, who was next to him, glanced at the celadone cup and instantly saw that it was a fake, thinking that it would be good if this thing could be worth hundreds. At this time, Jacob did not sell any more, and said with a smile, "Ha ha ha, I bought it for 300. Isn't it amazing?" Jacob laughed, and the joy in his expression could not be suppressed. Claire's eyes widened in surprise and couldn't believe it. "No, this cup really only cost 300. Elaine, the mother-in-law, heard the movement and walked out of the kitchen with joy. "This cup is so invaluable. Isn't it fake?" Jacob slapped his chest. "Don't worry, the people who sell the cups don't understand the market. I even asked someone to help me read it and said it was true." "Really?" Elaine carefully picked up the cup, looked left and right, smiling from ear to ear. Charlie stood aside, but only smiled in agreement, his expression calm. He had long seen that these two cups were fakes, but it was rare that the old master was so happy that he still did not expose them. Jacob was so excited that he looked like a cat who stole the fish and said with joy, "This cup is not yet available. The boss said that he will bring the missing part, and I will take a look again tomorrow. Try to buy the whole set. In that case, the value can be doubled several times. With any luck, the 6 million debts can be paid back." Charlie frowned and immediately stopped. "Dad, don't be greedy for playing antiques. Buying these 2 cups is enough, let's not talk about it." Jacob glared at him and cursed, "What more would the kid teach me now?" Charlie said hurriedly, No, do as you like it. After talking, I didn't bother to be nosy. Anyway, even if the old master is cheated, it is not his own money." Claire also said, "Dad, why are you buying so much? These 2 cups can't be eaten or drunk. Besides, the price difference is such big. Whether the cups are true or not has yet to be identified. She doesn't believe that the pie is falling in the sky. If you can buy 500,000 for 300, wouldn't everyone be rich?" Jacob was on his head when he saw a few people pouring cold water on himself and said contemptuously, "You don't understand. This is an antique, and it depends on a pair of clever eyes to pick it up." As he said, he admired the celadone cup and said to Claire, "You don't have to worry about this. There are still several people who want to grab it with me today. I may not be able to buy it tomorrow." Elaine said hurriedly, if it is so valuable, you must find a way to sell it." Seeing the two elders busy admiring the chicken bowl cup, Claire quietly pulled Charlie aside. "I don't think this is very reliable. It feels like a scam. Dad will definitely go there tomorrow. Then you and Dad will take a trip to the antique street so that he won't be cheated." Charlie nodded. If Claire didn't say anything, he wouldn't bother to care about it, but since his wife has spoken, he naturally couldn't stand by and watch. The next day is the weekend. Charlie was pulled by the old master and drove to the antique street early. The old master was refreshed, and he waved to Charlie when he got out of the car. "Come, I will show you what it means to pick up a fortune." After that, strode to Antique Street. Charlie had to walk quickly to keep up, looking around as he walked. On weekends, there are a lot more people on Antique Street than usual. The antique jade shops on both sides are very dense, and the vendors who come out to set up stalls are also densely packed, and the whole street is blocked. There are also many vendors who just spread a plastic sheet on the ground, filled with various antiques and jade, to welcome guests on the spot. Charlie glanced casually, and almost didn't see any genuine products. They were all used by black-hearted vendors to trick laymen and foreign tourists. Many tourists who bought the fakes were completely blindfolded, holding the imitations and grinning, thinking that they were taking a big advantage. Right here. Jacob stopped and stood in front of a simple stall, his expression unable to hide his excitement. There were a few tourists standing next to the stall, picking antiques. Jacob hurried into the crowd for fear of falling behind. Charlie glanced. This stall was nothing more than spreading a piece of oiled paper on the ground and placed dozens of antiques stained with mud, such as blue and white horses, 5 emperors' copper coins, copper wine cups, blood jade bracelets, yellowed calligraphy, and paintings. There was a dazzling array of things, but Charlie just took a casual look and found that these were all fakes. The stall owner was a thin, dark-skinned man. He was wearing a coarse blue cloth. His hair was greasy and disheveled. He grew a simple and honest appearance. He looked dull and dull. "Look at this!" Jacob greeted Charlie excitedly. He pointed to a colorful bottle with a big mouth and said in a low voice, "This is the wine bottle set with my 2 glasses. I bought it back and made one set, the price can be doubled." Charlie glanced at the wine bottle, held it in his hand, and raised his head to ask the boss, "How much is it?" The boss stared and blistered, and said dumbly, "My father said, at least 20,000, less than a cent will not be sold." When Jacob heard this, he almost laughed, and said to Charlie quickly, "This boss doesn't know the goods, let's buy them quickly, so as not to be picked up by others." After speaking, he hurriedly paid for it. At this moment, Charlie swiftly held his hand and smiled, "Dad, this thing is not worth 20,000, let's not buy it." "What?" Jacob was taken aback. "Then how much do you think it is worth?" Charlie stretched out his hand and shook it in front of the boss. "This number." 5,000, the boss asked, staring. Charlie shook his head. "No, it's 50. The boss stared at Charlie for several seconds like looking at an alien, and suddenly shouted, "Do you know the goods? This is an antique left by my grandfather. It is a genuine treasure. You people in the city are too bullying." Jacob was also anxious and pulled Charlie a hand. "Don't talk nonsense, be careful of messing up the business." Charlie smiled, picked up the bottle and turned it over, pulled the yellow mud on the bottom of the bottle with his hand, pointed to the middle of a slit, and said, "Dad, look at what this is." The slit is extremely small. If it weren't for Charlie pointed out, ordinary people would not see it at all. In the slit, a row of very small English letters appeared. "Made in China." Jacob was stunned, his mouth opened so that he could lay an egg, and he couldn't react for a long time. Suddenly, he recovered, his face flushed, pointing to the boss and yelling, You are cheating." Charlie took the wine bottle, shook it to the boss, and said, "The manufacturer dare not blatantly forge antiques. You have written this sign deliberately. You are quite clever. You know that you can block it with mud. In one sentence, 30, can you sell it?" The boss was stunned for a moment. Suddenly all the honesty on his face disappeared, and he slapped his forehead with a smile. "Two bosses, I was coming out in a hurry today, and I took the wrong bottle." "You got it wrong." Charlie smiled, and picked up a snuff bottle full of mud, digging into the mud on the bottle mouth with his hand, shone it to the sun, and said with a seriousness, "This is not wrong. It is made in Sioux City." In the snuff bottle, there was a row of small transparent characters. "Made by Suzhou Crafts Factory." "I don't know how to read, who knows what's written on it?" The boss saw that he didn't even do business. He sneered and wrapped the oiled paper cloth and wanted to grease the soles of his feet. This time Jacob was completely in his senses, and he was so angry after realizing that he was treated like a monkey for a long time. He grabbed the boss and roared, "You liar, return the money to me." "What kind of money? I have never seen you before." The boss struggled hard, and from the oil paper cloth he was holding in his hand, fake copper coins and fake jade horses kept dropping. The jade horse fell on the ground without breaking. "It seems to be made of hardened plastic. If you don't refund the money, I'll call the police." Jacob screamed, his lungs exploded with anger. Between the two pullings, a thing suddenly fell from the boss's arms. At the moment this thing fell, Charlie frowned suddenly and stared at the things on the ground. This thing is a fist-sized white pebble, just like the pebble on the river beach, grey and matte. But one difference is that this cobblestone is carved with the words safe and rich. The fonts are crude and shoddy, and at first glance, they are carved up manually. This kind of engraved stone is everywhere in the scenic area, and it is not worth any money. No wonder the boss didn't put it out just now. However, Charlie walked up with a stride, picked up the stone, and the blood all over his body suddenly boiled. Just now, he felt a different kind of breath exuding from this antique. Said it is breath, in fact, it is more like a kind of energy, a kind of magnetic field, which has produced a strong attraction to him. Charlie knew that this should be the spiritual energy recorded in the 9 profound heavenly secrets. Reiki is a mysterious energy that has been lost for a long time. It can not only completely transform a person's physical fitness, but can even cultivate and produce many incredible effects for ordinary people. Charlie was overjoyed, calmly weighed the pebbles in his hand, and asked, "Is this yours?" The boss froze for a moment, and nodded subconsciously, "Yes." "How to sell this stone?" Jacob was also surprised and asked, "Why did you buy this broken stone? Don't you know that this profiteer sells all fakes? It's just a piece of stone. It's okay to buy one and go back to be unlucky," Charlie said with a smile. The boss took the opportunity to break away from Jacob's hand and sneered at Charlie, "Do you really want to buy?" Charlie nodded, "I do." The boss suddenly became energetic, and said eloquently, "Brother, you are really insightful. Don't look at my pebble, but it is of extraordinary origin. It was placed on the dragon case in Lord Kyandi's study." Paperweight Charlie didn't have time to listen to his long talk and interrupted impatiently. "Don't talk to me about these and some, just come to the point." The boss laughed and said, "Since you are an expert, then 20,000. Charlie said disdainfully, "You want money crazy, right? One price, 300. If you don't sell, I will call the police to arrest you." 300. The boss sighed and said with a dry smile, "Brother, you are a person who knows the goods. 300 is 300. Charlie smiled slightly and pinched the stone in his hand. Jacob was puzzled. He didn't know why he bought such a broken stone. Just about to ask a question, there was a screaming voice next to him. "Yeah, this stone is good, my master wants it." Hearing this voice, Charlie frowned and looked up to look for recognition. He saw a young man wearing a white linen suit, black shoes, and all kinds of bracelets, walking towards this side. Although it was daylight, he wore a pair of antique gold-rimmed glasses with two round black glass plates, the kind of civilization mirror that the late Qing dynasty wore. The young man was followed by 4 or 5 bodyguards. Compared with his looks, these bodyguards were much more fierce and evil, and everyone next to him quickly moved away to avoid causing trouble. Yet, it turned out to be Stephen. As soon as the boss saw the young man, he immediately opened his eyes and smiled, and the flattering words came out of his mouth like running water. "Mr. Stephen, why didn't you say anything in advance when you came here today? I'd have come to the street to welcome you." "Okay, don't talk nonsense, I will just take a look today." The young man waved his hand impatiently. He strode forward, took a look at the stone in Charlie's hand, and raised his head to ask the boss, "Irvin Jones, put this stone up for me. There is a paperweight stone on my dad's desk. It is just right to use it." This the Mung Bean Eye boss gave a dry smile, looked at Charlie with a grimace, and said to please, "Mr. Stephen, this is really unfortunate. The stone has been bought by this brother. Actually, this stone is nothing special. Except for the press paper, it has no use for anything. I have specially reserved better products for you." "What is the beauty of the worthless stones? Only the top quality products are worthy of your identity." Charlie knew that this boss was named Irvin Jones, and he seemed to know this young man. However, he was also amazed at Irvin Jones's lip service. He's really talkative to people and nonsense to ghosts. Irvin Jones quickly took out the hardened plastic jade horse, splashing in his mouth, "Mr. Stephen, this is the beloved object of the former imperial concubine. You see, this jade is crystal clear, and the jade is of good quality, so let's not talk too much. For the sake of Mr. Stephen, the price you bought the chicken tank cup is the same as yesterday. You can take it for 9,000. Jacob was speechless when he heard that. The same fake chicken tank cup, dare to buy 300 and still take advantage of it. He didn't expect that Stephen actually spent 9,000. Don't talk nonsense. Mr. Stephen was impatient at hearing, kicked Irvin Jones to the side, and said arrogantly, I just like this stone, you give it to me, I will give you 20,000. When Irvin Jones heard 20,000, his heart suddenly became hot, and he turned his head and said to Charlie, Brother, how about you give it to Stephen? Charlie frowned and said coldly, This is something I bought, and I don't want to transfer it to others. Who asked you to transfer it? You haven't paid any money, whoever paid for it? Mr. Stephen said impatiently, then took out a wallet from his arms, took a stack of banknotes, and threw them on Irvin Jones's face. No need to look for 20,000, I'll take it. Irvin Jones's eyes lit up, and he quickly took the banknotes in his hand and smiled at Charlie, Brother, I also have an inkstone paperweight from Emperor Kangxi. It is better to keep it than this. Charlie smiled and said, Irvin Jones, you don't need to break those things, right? I bought this paperweight first, and I am not interested in giving it to others. Seeing Charlie didn't let go, Irvin Jones couldn't help it. After all, according to the rules of the antique transaction, it is to buy first, and if he breaks the rules, he will not be able to work in this antique street as soon as the news spreads. Irvin Jones had to turn around, nodded, and said to Mr. Stephen, Mr. Stephen, this paperweight is really not a good thing, there is something better in my house. Before he could finish his words, Mr. Stephen kicked his waist and cursed, You have been courageous? I have bought several things from you. Now you actually turn your elbow away to help a poor man talk. Irvin Jones was kicked and sat on the ground, clutching his waist and grunting, complaining, Mr. Stephen, if he doesn't give it to me, I can't help it. As he said, he winked Charlie vigorously, wanting him to let the stone out. Just by looking at Charlie's clothes and manners, he knew that he didn't have much money in his family, and he had no power or influence. But Stephen is different. He is the famous second generation in the literary and entertainment world, and he hasn't felt a shortage of money since he was born. Irvin Jones didn't want to offend Stephen or break the rules, so he winked at Charlie. Charlie had seen Irvin Jones's hint a long time ago, but he ignored it and said faintly, No. Irvin Jones was really helpless, so he could only sit on the ground and hum, so as not to be vented by Mr. Stephen again. Look at you waste! Mr. Stephen cursed with his eyebrows crossed and had to raise his head and glance at Charlie with a slanted eye. He said with money in his hands, You bought it for 300. I will pay 30,000. Give it to me. The crowd onlookers made a sound of inhalation, and they all looked at Charlie, their eyes full of jealousy. The price of things bought for 300 increased by 100 times before the heat was covered. This is an obvious profit. Besides that pebble, anyone who knows the goods can see that it was picked up on the river beach. This kind of broken stone, there are many on the river beach. Where is the goddess paperweight? Jacob was also a little excited. After all, he made more than 2,000 when he changed hands. Not to mention making up for what he lost yesterday, he could still make a little profit. Charlie raised his head, smiled at Mr. Stephen, and said, I say just now, don't sell. Even if you pay 300,000, I still have these words. You. Mr. Stephen's face suddenly became ugly, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. There were crowds all around. Charlie flatly refused in public. Didn't this make him ashamed? Turtle. You want to have trouble with me, right? Stephen sneered fiercely. Don't ask me, in this antique street, which one of the things that Stephen likes can't be bought. Today you have to sell, and if you don't, you still have to sell. After Stephen finished speaking, he waved his hand behind him. The bodyguards suddenly huddled and surrounded Charlie. The crowd around him also changed color. Even Jacob was stunned. The Cheen family in Aurous Hill? That is a wealthy and distinguished family, even more prominent than Gerald's family. No wonder Mr. Stephen spends $9,000 to buy a counterfeit chicken cup. He doesn't feel distressed at all. People don't care about money at all. If it is genuine or not, he just buys it for fun. Several bodyguards surrounded Charlie, aggressively. Jacob was afraid of things, so he winked at Charlie and asked him to quickly bring things to Mr. Stephen. Charlie looked faintly, glanced at the surrounding bodyguards, and said, I'm still saying that, don't sell. If you want to take advantage of the situation, I can only tell you, my things, no one can take away. It won't work for you as well. What's wrong with me? Stephen looked arrogant and raised his chin to scold. I tell you, I am the king of heaven. You, a turtle who wants to fight with me, are impatient. Seeing Stephen's arrogance, the surrounding crowd held their breath, thinking, this Charlie dared to confront Stephen, this is a big loss. Charlie still had a calm face and smiled. I think you are also in the antique industry. Have you ever thought about what is most particular about the antique industry? Stephen asked coldly, what is the most important thing? Charlie laughed and said, of course the most peculiar thing is the rules. After that, raise the volume a bit and say loudly, antiques are first come, first served, and I'll be there. Who else will do business with you in this industry tomorrow? When that happens, Mr. Stephen, you will become a rat crossing the street, and everyone will scream. As soon as he finished speaking, Stephen was stunned. A flash of anger flashed across his face. There is indeed such a rule in the antique world. He claims to play elegant scholar, and he is naturally very clear about this rule. If today's incident spreads, the store he usually deals with will probably retreat for fear of offending other customers. Stephen didn't expect that Charlie would stop himself from coming to the stage with a few words. He stared at Charlie fiercely, really wanting to kick that face. But he still swallowed his anger forcibly, gritted his teeth, and said, do you really think that you are worthy of your rock? I just want you to know that antiques are not accessible to everyone. You are a poor ghost, you should go home as soon as possible to plant the land, so as not to tarnish it. After speaking, Stephen rolled up his sleeves with a dark face, and raised his arms to Charlie's eyes and shook, open your dog's eyes and see clearly. This string of chicken blood jade is 150 from Lingnan. I got it. Have you seen such a good thing? The bracelet on Stephen's wrist was crystal clear, red, and shiny in the sun, and it was so beautiful that everyone around him opened his eyes. Irvin Jones stared at the hand strings, swallowing fiercely. I'm shocked, what a good thing. Humph. Of course. Stephen was very proud of everyone's reaction. After that, he glanced at Charlie contemptuously, opened his collar, and pulled out a gourd-shaped jade piece tied around his neck. Look at this again. This piece of chalcedony is a coming-of-age ceremony gift given to me by the Emperor of the Sui dynasty. 88 high-ranking monks set up an altar to consecrate the Buddha and recite the Buddha for 108 days. It is worth 3 million. Upon hearing that this piece of gourd chalcedony was so big, the crowd craned their necks to watch. Irvin Jones flapped his nose with excitement as if being slapped. His eyes were straight at the jade gourd, his eyes were greedy, and he wanted to swallow it into his stomach. Stephen held the jade gourd and sneered at Charlie. Poor playing watch, rich playing jade, you are a poor man, you can't afford decent clothes, and you want to buy antiques. It makes people laugh out loud. His tone was ironic, and the surrounding crowd looked at Charlie from time to time. Indeed, Charlie didn't look like a wealthy family. He wore the most common white t-shirt, jeans, and a pair of sneakers, just like a young working man. As for Stephen's outfit, it seems ordinary, but anyone who knows how to do it knows that this set of clothes is expensive and completely handmade, and it costs at least 6 figures from head to toe. Charlie looked at Stephen with a smug look and felt that this man was funny, but in fact, he was not a wicked person. At best he was a silly young master who was short-sighted. So Charlie looked at him and asked with a smile, "You are rich, aren't you? Look at your bracelet, it looks really good, but it's a fake." Stephen was taken aback for a moment, and suddenly roared, "You are talking nonsense, my bracelet can't be fake. If you don't believe me, ask the bosses in the antique shops around you." Charlie shrugged and said something in the words, "If you have money to play antiques, you also have to look at who is playing antiques. If a blind person has to get in the antique circle, he doesn't know how to pretend to understand, in the eyes of others. He is just a fat sheep, nothing more." Stephen was full of irritation. Hearing that Charlie was mocking his ignorance, he sternly said, "If my bracelet is genuine, you can kneel down and admit it to me on the spot. How about it?" 104. Okay. Charlie agreed, with an extremely relaxed attitude, thinking of artificial bloodstone as chicken blood jade. "I can only say that you are really a talent." Stephen was ridiculed by him, his face flushed, he turned his head fiercely and said to the crowd watching the whole scene, "Boss Jones and Boss Lee, you two will appraise me to see if this bracelet is true or not." The two people named by him suddenly showed embarrassment and looked at each other. Appraisal of antiques, whether they are true or false, is offensive, and it might offend colleagues. "Stephen, we both have limited knowledge, we really can't see it." Stephen said angrily, "Don't think I don't know what yours is. You give me a good appraisal, no matter whether it is genuine or not, you will not trouble me. But if you fool around, I will find someone to appraise it afterward. I can't spare you for telling lies." "Don't be angry, Mr. Stephen." The two came forward in shock. No one dared to offend Mr. Stephen when doing business in Antique Street. Therefore, the two antique shop owners had to bite the bullet and take a look at the jade string. A few minutes later, one of the bosses gave a shuddering dry smile. "Stephen, that little brother is right, your bracelets say." Stephen sneered coldly. The boss was frightened and said quickly, your bracelet is indeed artificial bloodstone, not jade." As soon as his voice fell, Stephen's face turned green, bloodshot, and flushed quickly, as if being slapped in public. His throat swallowed fiercely as if to be angry. The two bosses were so frightened that they drew back into the crowd, not daring to appear again. Charlie smiled and said, "Do you believe it now? Buying a bunch of artificial stones for 1.5 million, Mr. Stephen is indeed rich. This time I missed you." Stephen gritted his teeth and said, "Isn't it just 1.5 million? Do you think I will pay the money? Even if my bracelets are fake, my jade gourd is always real, absolutely genuine." For this jade gourd, Stephen is 100% confident. Because he did find an expert to appraise it, this gourd is indeed a good ancient jade, and it is in the Sui dynasty. Charlie snorted coldly, "If you can wear such a big evil thing as a treasure, I'm afraid there will be no second fool like you in the world. What are you talking about? It's just silly." Stephen roared sharply, and the blue veins on his forehead protruded. Charlie said faintly, "You have collected such a fierce thing next to your skin. You are lucky if you haven't died yet." Stephen's face was ugly, but with the lessons learned just now, he was not sure whether Charlie's words were true or false. He stared and asked, "Why do you say that? Look at the shape of this jade gourd." Charlie said coldly, "Did you not check when you received the jade? What exactly do jade pieces of this shape do?" Stephen yelled with some confidence, "This isn't this Sui Emperor's coming-of-age ceremony. The gourd represents auspiciousness, and everyone who deals in jade knows this. I know this better than your poor guy." "You know what?" Seeing Stephen's hard mouth, Charlie shook his head and sneered disdainfully, "You don't even know the difference between a gourd and a jade plug? The old saying goes, Jinn and jade are in the 9 orifices, and the dead are immortal. You should always know the sentence. What kind of golden jade, dead people?" Stephen was confused. Charlie's face was, "You can't teach a child," and he shook his head and said, "I don't know this. Have you always heard of Jukyeyu? What 9-aperture jade?" Stephen was even more confused, looking at Charlie blankly. Although Stephen likes antiques, he doesn't have the mind to study at all, that is, he buys what others say is good, and then goes out and pretends to be right. Idiot! Charlie sneered, 9-aperture jade is the jade plug used by the dead to plug the 9 apertures. There are 7 orifices in the ears, nose, mouth, and eyes, plus the genital pores and excretory holes. Dead. Stephen opened his mouth wide, his eyes rounded. He glanced at the jade hanging around his neck in disbelief, and the hair on his back suddenly stood up. "Is this from a dead person?" Charlie said mockingly, "It seems that you really don't understand. This in your hand is used by a dead person to plug the drain hole, which is the cylinder door. You even wear it on your neck, don't you feel smelly?" Stephen couldn't speak anymore, staring at the jade gourd in his hand. Suddenly a strong feeling of nausea surged. This jade gourd was actually stuffed in that place. And I actually took it as a mascot and hung it around my neck for 3 years. The most thing is that because I like this thing so much, I often play with it in my mouth. Doesn't this mean that I indirectly ate the ancients' filth? Vomit. Stephen couldn't help it anymore, bending down and retching. The crowd, who were still scrambling to watch, now cast a mocking look at him. Some even gloated at the misfortune, mocking Stephen for being blind, and spending a lot of money to buy such a bad thing. Charlie said coldly, also, this jade piece has been soaked in corpse chi for a long time, and it has sucked enough fierce aura. If you continue to wear it, you will surely die within a year. As soon as he finished his words, the crowd around Stephen immediately held back, for fear of being contaminated by the ferocity on his body. Irvin Jones, who was standing beside Stephen, also ran to the very edge. Although he is a half bucket of water, and he usually does nothing but deceives, but he has also dealt with the thief-fighting master, knowing that Charlie's words are not groundless. Stephen was also frightened and looked up at Charlie in a daze. Charlie's face was cold, and he snorted, "Are you going to have a bad time this year? Have you had a bloody disaster like a car accident or something?" Stephen stared at Charlie blankly, completely stunned. He did have a bad fortune this year, and he had just had a car accident at the beginning of the year. If it hadn't been for the crash-resistant Hummer that day, he would have given his life a long time ago. However, the driver who drove was killed on the spot. He broke 2 ribs and spent half a month in the hospital before returning home. Stephen burst into a cold sweat, pulled the jade piece off his neck, waved, and threw it far away. The crowd backed away quickly, for fear of causing trouble to the upper body. Seeing Stephen's guilty conscience, Charlie sneered in his heart. If he hadn't reminded him today, if Stephen continued to wear it, he would definitely die this year. "Who are you?" Stephen gritted his teeth and glared at Charlie. "This person knows too much. Is it someone sent by the enemy?" "I am someone you can't afford," Charlie said coldly, turning around and leaving. When Stephen saw that the other party was about to leave, he thought Charlie wanted to escape, and immediately roared, "Catch him for me! Dare to find my fault, there must be someone behind this kid. Can't afford to provoke? Haha, in Aurous Hill City, there is no one I can't afford to provoke. Catch him, break his leg, and ask who it is that dares to trouble my Chin family." He believed that Charlie was the person sent by his business rival, otherwise, how could he know exactly what happened to him in the car accident? Several bodyguards acted immediately and rushed to stand in front of Charlie. The other 2 bodyguards strode to Jacob's face, and violently reached out their hands and grabbed them. Jacob was so frightened, he didn't expect to get into this kind of disaster when he went out to buy an antique. Just when the bodyguard was about to catch Jacob, Charlie's eyes were cold, and he kicked a brawny man in front of him with 1 foot, rushed to Jacob in 3 or 2 steps, and hit the bodyguard in the face with 1 punch. Bang! The bodyguard was about to grab Jacob and was hit by a punch in the front. He suddenly spurted his nose and backed away, covering his face. The other bodyguard saw Charlie start his hand, quickly took out the electric baton, and called Charlie fiercely. "Ah!" Jacob yelled in fright, "Charlie, get away!" Before he finished speaking, Charlie shook his body agilely, avoided a stick that flew over, clasped the bodyguard's left wrist with his backhand, and tried hard. Boom! Before the bodyguard with the electric baton could react, he was thrown to the ground by one over his shoulder, grinning in pain, and could not get up for a long time. Jacob was speechless, almost didn't recognize that the young man standing in front of him was his son-in-law. Why is his skill so good? Charlie bent down, picked up the electric baton on the ground, squeezed it in his hand, and said, "Who else? Let's go with the rest." The crowd watched silently, their eyes all fixed on Charlie. Irvin Jones was also dumbfounded, staring at Charlie, and murmured, "Brother, amazing." He was fortunate that he didn't make Charlie angry just now, otherwise, this one fell off his shoulders and his bones would fall apart. Jacob returned to his senses and asked in shock behind Charlie, "Charlie, where did you learn this skill?" This Charlie smiled and said, "Dad, when I first went to work, I was bored at home watching TV. Isn't there a show on the Ring every morning on TV? I learned all of it from TV." In fact, Charlie practiced Wing Chun since he was a child, and it is the most authentic Wing Chun. After all, this man is the descendant of the Wade family branch. However, in order to hide his identity, he naturally cannot tell the old master. Moreover, what surprised Charlie was that his current strength seemed to have improved a lot. Combat effectiveness has been improved several times than usual. It seems that this should be due to the 9 profound heaven classics. And the pebble full of aura just now, a little bit of aura entered the body, and I felt that the physical fitness of the whole person had improved a lot. The crowd sounded in awe. Such a powerful skill is stronger than the skill of a martial artist in the Aurous Hill City Martial Arts Hall. He actually taught himself by watching TV. This self-taught talent is simply amazing. I learned it from TV. Irvin Jones's eyes widened. Such an amazing skill came from watching TV. He quickly admired Charlie and sneered at him, "Big brother, may I ask which channel you are watching? Want to learn?" Charlie looked at Irvin Jones and said faintly, "CCTV Sports Channel, the arena." The people present thought that Charlie was telling the truth, all of them were holding back their energy, and they wanted to go home and have a look at the program. Stephen, who was standing silly on the side, finally recovered his senses at this time, his expression extremely ugly. "This is so embarrassing. The bodyguards that I have paid a lot of money to are all senior martial artists in the martial arts center in the city." Unexpectedly, they were turned over in the blink of an eye by a hairy boy who watched TV and learned martial arts. Stephen is a layman in martial arts, and he can't see the level of Charlie, but the bodyguards under him are not stupid. Experts will know if there is any. They knew at a glance that Charlie didn't speak big words, and the other party didn't even give his full strength. It is indeed someone they can't afford to provoke. Therefore, several bodyguards did not dare to step forward and looked at Charlie with awe. Jacob watched from the side. He didn't know anything about martial arts. He thought that Charlie's tricks were ordinary, that is, pinching his wrists, throwing his shoulders and other things, but it was just a little bit stronger. He didn't know that this was the real skill. Charlie smiled slightly at Stephen at this time. "Are you coming by yourself or I need to come over?" "You, don't come over." Stephen was so frightened that his head was sweating, and he subconsciously stepped back. Seeing him so distressed, Charlie snorted coldly and walked towards him. Stephen stared at him in horror, and quickly stepped back. If I was thrown by him like this, I would definitely have to lie down in the hospital for half a month. At this moment, a black BMW car drove slowly from the street corner and stopped not far away. The driver quickly opened the door and asked people to get out of the car. Stephen was overjoyed when he saw this scene and shouted at the other side, "Sister! I was beaten by someone. Come and save me." Charlie looked up and saw that the crowd voluntarily gave up the passage, and a woman in black tight-fitting sportswear was walking towards this side. The tight-fitting sportswear outlines the woman's figure perfectly, and her face is angry, adding a bit of heroism. "That's Stephen's sister, Aox Chin." Someone in the crowd suddenly shouted in shock, and then the crowd was in an uproar. Stephen exclaimed, "Sister, this kid beat me, you help me beat him fiercely." After Aoxu approached, she glanced at the bodyguards lying on the ground, then looked at Charlie coldly, "You beat these people." Charlie said flatly, "It's me, what's the matter?" Aoxu sneered and said, "Nothing much, apologize to my brother immediately." "What if I say no? Then I will fight until you apologize." Before the words came to an end, Aoxu whips her legs and kicked Charlie's cheek in an instant. Charlie was a little surprised. This woman's skill was much better than the previous group of bodyguards. Her whip kick is full of strength and speed, and she seems to be a serious practitioner. Stephen watched this scene and secretly said, "Look at my sister, she can kill you." His sister has practiced martial arts for many years and is proficient in ancient martial arts and sanda skills. Even some serious martial arts masters are not her equal opponents. But the next moment, Stephen's eyes widened suddenly. Too weak. Following Charlie's anger, his body flashed to the side in an instant, and then he lifted his leg and kicked Aoxu, kicking her whole body out. Stephen's jaw almost fell off, staring at the scene blankly, and whispered, "How is this possible?" Aoxu was even more embarrassed. Since practicing martial arts, she has never been humiliated so much, and the place where the opponent kicked is too shameful to think of. She was full of anger, and when she got up, she was about to rush towards Charlie. She decided in her heart that she must make him pay the price today. "Aoxu, stop quickly. Don't be rude to Mr. Wade." At this moment, suddenly a middle-aged man ran up and grabbed Aoxu. Aoxu had a pretty face of shame and yelled, "Dad, get out of the way, I want to kill him." "Can you kick me? Don't you know Liang Xiangziyu? My butt is still aching now." "Shut up." The middle-aged man glared at Aoxu and scolded. Afterward, he walked towards Charlie with a humble expression on his face, took a deep breath, and said respectfully, "Mr. Wade, you have met my ineffective daughter and nephew. I apologize to you. When I return, I will let them think about it." Aoxu and Stephen froze there, watching this scene in disbelief. The father is a high-end figure in Aurous City, how could he be so polite to this kid? Charlie recognized the middle-aged man. Before, when he went to appraise with Warnya, he met him. His name is Qin Gang. So Charlie nodded and said, "Mr. Stephen and this lady really should be more disciplined." Qin Gang nodded repeatedly, glared at the two, and said, "Come here and apologize to Mr. Wade." "I won't apologize to someone who kicked me." Aoxu curled her lips with an angry expression on her face. Qin Gang scolded angrily, "Apologies. Immediately. Now." Aoxu was instantly discouraged, biting her teeth in injustice, and whispered, I'm sorry. Stephen was full of irritation and said, Uncle, this kid humiliated me at will, and beat my sister. If you don't clean him, let me apologize. If you can't clean up, I will find someone. I'll kill him. Snapped. Qin Gang slapped his face heavily, and said angrily, kneel down to Mr. Wade. Stephen was slapped with gold stars in his eyes, and blood dripped from the corners of his mouth. He covered his face in horror. He was completely stunned. He didn't know how things would turn out to be, and let him kneel in public. This simply caused the Qin family's face to be lost. How can they talk about prestige in Aurous Hill City from now on? Qin Gang gritted his teeth and shouted, do you know that if Mr. Wade finds out about your jade, not only will you be killed, but the entire Qin family will be killed? After that, he scolded angrily, I thought why the Qin family has been in bad luck recently, and various things have happened one after another. It turns out that you have caused the evil to descend upon us. If your grandfather knows about it, he'll feed your legs to dogs. Seeing that his uncle was so serious, Stephen was frightened, his legs softened, and knelt on the ground. Qin Gang sternly shouted, you still didn't apologize to Mr. Wade. Yes, I'm sorry. Stephen was already scared, and apologized to Charlie, trembling, his eyes full of horror. Qin Gang said respectfully to Charlie, Mr. Wade, I don't know how to deal with it, are you satisfied? Charlie said indifferently, forget it. Since he knelt down, then I won't care about him. Qin Gang felt relieved, and hurriedly asked, Mr. Wade, I have something else to ask you. After the jade is lost, can my Qin family's fortune be restored to normal? Charlie sneered and said, you think it's pretty beautiful. This jade is so powerful that it's not just on Stephen alone. In my opinion, within a year, your Qin family will probably be ruined. Qin Gang was frightened by Charlie's words. What do you mean? This price is too painful, right? Qin Gang's face turned pale suddenly, and it took a long time to sigh, I have never done anything wrong in my life, and I have done good deeds every day. How can I end up like this? Charlie smiled and said, so it seems that you wanted to buy that piece of topaz last time because of this. Qin Gang nodded. In the past year, he tried all the methods, but none of them worked until he met Charlie. Last time, he thought Charlie just knew how to appraise treasures, and didn't pay much attention. But today, Charlie actually broke his evil spirit with a word, which made him understand that Charlie is not an ordinary person at all, and the hope of saving the Qin family may lie in Charlie. Immediately, he hurriedly clasped his fists at Charlie and begged, Mr. Wade, please help me. After speaking, he hurriedly whispered a few words to the assistant beside him, who immediately turned and left. Charlie smiled faintly and said, Mr. Qin, you should solve your family's affairs by yourself. He didn't have much friendship with the Qin family and had a relationship with Qin Gang before. What's more, Stephen in front of him also offended himself. The horrified Aoxu next to her was quite pretty. The little girl had a very good figure, with her front convex and backward, and her pungent personality, quite a little chilly. But what does it have to do with yourself if you are beautiful or not? One is not his wife, and the other is not sleeping with himself. Therefore, Charlie had no reason to help the Qin family. However, Qin Gang was not willing to give up this excellent opportunity to save the family. He immediately bowed and said, "I beg Mr. to show the way." Qin Gang looked at Charlie almost piously, bowed 90 degrees, and assumed an extremely humble posture. But Charlie remained unmoved. Seeing that Charlie was indifferent, Qin Gang's heart slammed and knelt on the ground. At this moment, Aoxu next to him saw this and knelt down without any hesitation. She knelt in front of Charlie and pleaded bitterly, "Mr. Wade, I was abrupt and angered you just now. Please don't take it to your heart. The fate of my Qin family is in your hands. Please also help." After that, she turned her head to look at Stephen, who was stunned. She slapped her face and slapped, "Stephen! You caused this! You brought that weird dirty thing home, and so is the family. You are dragged down, and even Mr. Wade is offended by you, so please kowtow to Mr. Wade. Please, Mr. Wade." Stephen was really frightened. He really didn't expect that the Qin family's recent fate was unfavorable, and his blood and light disaster was caused by that piece of jade. Now he can't escape the blame and anger's the only Mr. Wade who can resolve everything. He is really afraid of returning home. Was beaten to death by the crowd in the family. So he immediately knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Charlie, begging, "Mister, I'm wrong, mister. It's me who has no eyes, I don't know what's good or bad, please forgive me and help us by the way. Qin family, I'll kowtow to you after that." Stephen knocked his head on the concrete floor, making a bang. At this time, Qin Gang's assistant ran back and handed him a gift box. Qin Gang hurriedly gave it to Charlie, respectfully handing it to Charlie, and said humbly, "Mr. Wade, this is the most expensive jade bracelet. The price is more than 6 million. Please Mr. Wade accept it." Charlie glanced indifferently at the gift in Qin Gang's hand. It was a fine jadeite old pit ice seed bracelet with an excellent water head and crystal clear like glass. Although it is not as good as the jade necklace he gave to his wife Claire before, it is almost top-notch. The people around looked straight. Everyone knows this bracelet. The most expensive bracelet in rare earth has a price of 6 million. Qin Gang actually asked his assistant to buy it back and give it to Charlie, and still begged Charlie to accept it. It can be seen how strong he is to cater to Charlie at this moment. What is Charlie's identity? Charlie's father-in-law was also dumbfounded, and he had never encountered such an incredible thing in his life. Charlie looked at the jade bracelet but didn't accept it. He just looked at Qin Gang with a faint smile, and said, "Ms. Qin, how do you know that I must have a way to resolve this evil spirit?" Qin Gang said piously, "If Mr. Wade can't do it, then no one in this world can do it." Charlie smiled indifferently. What Qin Gang said was true, he really had a way to resolve it. The 9 profound heavenly scriptures have recorded this kind of evil spirit, and how to break it is also very clearly written there. Charlie glanced at the jade bracelet and took it casually. Look at this jade bracelet, crystal bracelet. If it is worn on the wrist of his wife Claire, it must be very beautiful. As for this Qin Gang, to be honest, not bad guys. It doesn't hurt to discipline the descendants of the family, and the crime does not lead to death. Since he begged himself so piously, it wouldn't hurt to help him. So Charlie said, "Well, since you are a humble person, I'll see about it for your sake." After that, he put the bracelet down. Seeing Charlie accept the bracelet, Qin Gang was overjoyed and quickly bowed to him. "Mr. Wade, the Qin family can barely speak in Aurous Hill City. If you can break the evil spirit, Mr. Charlie, this Qin family will never forget your kindness and go all out when you need us." The crowd around was in an uproar, and they were all surprised. The Qin family is willing to go all out. Charlie thought for a moment, and said, "If this is the case, then I will help you once, and rest is up to your Qin family's fate." Qin Gang immediately squashed his head and said excitedly, "Mr. Wade, please." Charlie asked for a piece of yellow paper talisman and cinnabar from the antique shop next to him. He drew a few strokes on the yellow paper and gave it to Qin Gang. "Put this talisman on the jade plug and take it home to burn incense daily. After the 79th day, the evil spirit will be completely removed. During these 7 or 79 days, the family should avoid killing and blood, and family members should bathe and burn incense every day. Remember." "Sir, I'll be mindful of that." Qin Gang took the rune with both hands respectfully, and was extremely grateful to Charlie, carefully pasting the rune on the jade plug and wrapping it into a yellow paper bag. As soon as it was wrapped up, Stephen suddenly felt light in his body, the irritability of his whole body seemed to disappear, and his whole person became refreshed. Qin Gang also felt the changes in his body, and his psyche was clearer and more comfortable than before. He knew that Charlie's method worked. This made him suddenly ecstatic. "Fortunately, I found Charlie, otherwise, after today, the Qin family will be in desperation." Irvin Jones looked beside him in amazement, and when he saw Qin Gang finished, he hurriedly moved up with a shy face and bowed to Charlie with a smile. "Big brother, can you help me? When do you think I can find a beautiful wife?" Charlie frowned and shook his head. "If you want to marry a beautiful wife, learn to be a man first." Aoxu stood by and let out a chuckle. Qin Gang smiled respectfully and said, "Mr. Wade, thanks for your great kindness to the Qin family. Today is a bit rushed, and it is too late to prepare. Can I invite Mr. Wade to come to the Qin family tomorrow? Host a banquet at home to entertain you personally, to thank you for your great kindness." "No, I have something else." Charlie shook his head coldly, and said, "Today's affairs, I think you did more of good deeds. I don't want to be too public, understand?" Qin Gang was taken aback, and nodded again and again. "Qin understands. Mr. Wade will be useful to the Qin family in the future, just come to Qin." After speaking, he quickly handed over a gold-plated business card with his personal mobile phone number on it. Charlie took it without looking, turned around, and took the old master to leave. And Qin Gang kept watching the two of them disappear before glaring at Stephen and said angrily, "From now on in Aurous Hill, when you see Mr. Wade, you will bow respectfully and say hello to him, and don't cause me trouble again." Stephen said aggrieved, "I didn't know that going to the street to buy something can offend a master." Aoxu on the side gritted her teeth as she watched Charlie's departure. Although she admired Charlie very much, she obviously still remembered Charlie kicking her in her heart. For a proud girl, this kind of thing is simply unforgivable. Qin Gang sighed and comforted her, "Girl, don't retaliate against Mr. Wade, now our whole family is counting on Mr. Wade. Can he really help?" Stephen mumbled. Qin Gang scolded, "If you talk nonsense, I will break your leg." Stephen shrank his neck, not daring to say more. Aoxu stomped her feet bitterly, and said, "I know, Dad, I will not provoke him." The thought of her body still aching, she felt angry and uncomfortable. "It's a pity," Qin Gang sighed, shaking his head. Aoxu asked in surprise, "What a pity?" Qin Gang glanced at her and said, "Unfortunately, Mr. Wade is already married. Otherwise, I think you two becoming good friends." "Dad! What are you talking about?" Aoxu was so embarrassed and annoyed on the way back. Jacob was still very surprised. The dignified Qin patriarch is so respectful to his live-in son-in-law. "Charlie, are the things you told Qin Gang true?" Jacob doubted that his son-in-law was becoming more and more like a liar. Charlie chuckled and said, "It's a half-truth, half-truth. Don't all scammers like to play tricks?" After hearing this, Jacob was shocked and reprimanded in a panic, "You dare to lie to the Qin family, and you have received such an expensive bracelet. What if someone finds it, turns back and reveals it? Won't they ruin our home?" Charlie shook his head and said, "It's not a big deal, you can return the bracelet to them, there is a rule of law, can they still kill me?" Jacob sighed and sighed. Obviously, he was worried, but after thinking about it, there was no other way. He could only take a gamble. Maybe Charlie's quack trick was really effective? After returning home, Charlie went into the bedroom and took out the safety and wealth stone he had received from Irvin Jones. And at this moment, Charlie suddenly felt that surging energy penetrated into his body from the stone. Charlie suddenly felt warmth, and the entire chest and belly were uncomfortable. Soon, layers of sweat, mixed with black impurities, were discharged from the body, and the body was extremely relaxed. After a while, Charlie felt that there was a burst of energy in his body running through the veins. This is aura. When he looked at the stone again, Charlie found that the stone had already contained aura, just like an ordinary stone. Charlie ran the cultivation method recorded in the 9 profound heavenly scriptures, and couldn't draw aura from it. Charlie could only put the stone back in his pocket. Intuitively, he felt that this thing was extraordinary, but since he couldn't study it at this time, he could only wait until his cultivation level was improved. Feeling sticky all over, Charlie hurried to take a bath. When he finished the bath, it was already over 5 in the afternoon. Claire called him. On the phone, Claire told Charlie that she was discussing project details at Emgrand Group. The BMW 760 modified 520 Charlie bought for her happened to be restricted today. She didn't drive and wanted Charlie to drive her 530. The Emgrand Group picked her up. Charlie was naturally obliged to call his wife. So he immediately asked the old man for the car key, went downstairs, and drove to the Emgrand Group. After arriving downstairs, Charlie took out his mobile phone and dialed Claire. Claire did not answer but quickly replied to him on WeChat. "Charlie, I'm still in a meeting with the project team. You can wait for me downstairs for a while." "Thank you." "Okay, then I will wait for you downstairs." After Charlie responded to Claire, he smoked outside the car while waiting. At this time, Doris, the vice chairman of the Emgrand Group, called him and asked, "Mister, have you been to the Emgrand Group?" Charlie asked curiously, "How do you know?" Doris said, I'm in my office, so I can see your car. Charlie raised his head and glanced, then smiled, Are you looking for something to do with me? Doris said, The young lady is still in meetings, and it may take a while, so I want to ask if you have time. If you have time, I would like to report to you about recent work. Charlie thought for a while. He hasn't taken care of the Emgrand Group's affairs recently, so he can't be ignorant of it for too long, so he said, You wait, I will come up. Doris said, Then go directly to your office, and I will report to you in your office. That is what I am doing. After hanging up the phone, Charlie stepped into the building, got on the elevator, and went straight to the chairman's office on the top floor. When he walked out of the elevator door and headed for the office, a door behind him suddenly opened. Elsa was planning to go to the bathroom at this time, but she didn't expect to see a familiar back when she left the house. She didn't recognize that this figure was Charlie, but felt that this figure was very similar to the God-level Rich on YouTube. Could it be that the chairman I have always wanted to meet finally came? Elsa became excited immediately. After all, the fundamental purpose of coming to Aurous Hill and Emgrand Group is to get close to the mysterious chairman, and then work hard to make herself his woman. In this way, the entire Dong family can be improved. This is the mission that the entire family entrusted to her, and it is also the sustenance of the entire family in the future. However, Elsa is also very depressed. She has been here for so many days, and she hasn't even seen the chairman's face. How can she develop a relationship with the chairman in a longer-term direction? So now seeing the back of the chairman, Elsa is very excited. She hurriedly walked a few steps, followed Charlie, wanted to catch up to say hello, and then introduce herself. Charlie heard the footsteps behind him, and the left light swept across the glass beside him, and suddenly realized that Elsa was behind him. Bad. If Elsa is allowed to recognize him here, she will definitely think of him as the chairman of the Emgrand Group. She might even think of him as the Wade family's young master. This is terribly bad. So, seeing Elsa want to catch up, he quickly speeded up, stepped into the chairman's office, and locked the door. Elsa didn't expect that the other party would suddenly speed up, and when the reaction came to chase, the other party had already entered the office. Seeing Charlie entering the office, Elsa was disappointed and muttered in a low voice, Weird, why does this chairman seem to be hiding from me on purpose? Thinking of this, she still didn't give up, went to knock on the door, and said, Hello, Chairman, I am the new Administrative Director Elsa, I want to report to you. Charlie deliberately lowered his voice and replied, Have you reported to Doris? The company does not allow leapfrog reporting, don't you know? Sorry, Chairman, I forgot. Elsa was frightened and nervous, and thought, this chairman is so fierce, is he angry at her leapfrog report, or doesn't want to see her at all? However, Elsa didn't dare to stay at the door of Charlie's office and had no choice but to leave. Charlie heard Elsa's footsteps getting farther and farther, and finally heaved a sigh of relief. She almost recognized him, it was really dangerous. He will have to think before coming to the Emgrand Group in the future, and Elsa is now the executive director of the Emgrand Group, and the office is on the same floor as herself. In this way, the chance of being hit by her is too great. It happened that Doris came over to report to him at this time. Charlie said to her, "Doris, you can arrange something for me." Doris nodded. "Master, name it." Charlie said, "You help me change Elsa's position." After speaking, he asked, "In our company, what position does not need to stay in the office all the time?" "Sales, business." Doris replied, "These two positions often have to go out for business, basically not in the company." "Okay." Charlie nodded and said, "Then transfer her to be the sales director." "No problem, I'll start arranging when I go back later." Doris agreed. Subsequently, Doris and Charlie discussed the company's recent situation. Now, the new 6-star hotel project of Emgrand Group has started. The site is located at the foot of Tayan Mountain, with beautiful scenery and an elegant environment. After this hotel is completed, it will become the first 6-star hotel in Aurous Hill, which is extremely luxurious. The hotel-related business is progressing very smoothly. It is expected to be completed within 2 years and be put into use in 2.5 years' time. By then, the income ability of the Emgrand Group will rise to a new level. Charlie instructed her, "If my wife does a good job and has the leisure ability, you can allocate more business to her." Doris immediately said, "You can rest assured, Master, I will definitely." Seeing that his wife was about to finish the meeting, Charlie said to Doris, "You go and call Elsa to your office now, I'll take the opportunity to leave." Doris nodded hurriedly, returned to her office, and called Elsa. Hearing that Doris had something to do with her, Elsa went to her office immediately. At this time, Charlie quickly went downstairs. As soon as he went downstairs, he saw Claire walking out with a tired expression. Claire was obviously exhausted from the cooperation, and said helplessly, "There are so many things now, I can't be too busy." Charlie asked distressedly, "Should I divide the work? Or you just don't do it?" "That won't work." Claire said, "It hasn't been long since I became the director, and my foundation is not stable. I must work hard, otherwise, my cousin will definitely get in." Thinking of Harold, Claire couldn't help but feel annoyed. This person is particularly annoying, always opposing her, and always likes to do things that hurt others and put them at disadvantage. On the way back, Claire closed her eyes in the car, and Charlie focused on driving without disturbing her. At this moment, in Doris's office, Doris informed Elsa of the new appointment. Elsa was a little surprised. It hasn't been long since she accepted the job of Chief Executive Officer, and now getting transferred to sales. "Why?" Doris explained to her, "I think you are very capable, and you are too talented to do administrative work in the company, and I looked at your resume. Your university studies are business management and marketing, and sales are the best suitable for your position, and sales are more important to the company. If you do this job well, you will have a better future." Doris didn't talk nonsense. Sales positions are much more important than the administration. Sales is the department where the company really pays. The administration is a steward of the company, who is in charge of trivial matters. Elsa didn't think too much, but instead felt that if she could do a good job in sales and bring actual profits to the company, then the chairman of the board should pay more attention to her in the future. So, this is a good thing for her. Out of Doris's office happily, the first thing Elsa did was to call her good girlfriend Claire. As soon as the phone connected, she said excitedly, "Claire, I have been transferred to the sales director." "Really?" Claire got excited all of a sudden, and said, "This is really great. You are a sales talent, and you are too talented to be an administrative officer. Now you have more room to play and can make great achievements." Hee hee. Elsa was also very happy, blurting out, "Why don't we have dinner together to celebrate? You call Charlie as well." Claire said with some embarrassment, "We are both getting home now. To be honest, I am really tired today. Can I get a rain check?" Elsa knows that Claire has been working hard recently, so she hurriedly said, You have been working too hard lately. You work overtime frequently for meetings, so go back and have a good rest. Let's get together after you finish." "Okay," Claire said, "when I finish my work for a while, let's hang out together." Elsa smiled and said, "That's a deal." Hanging up the phone, Elsa felt a little lost. She doesn't have any real friends in Aurous Hill, the only good friend is Claire. Now she moved to the position of sales director, the stage was bigger, it was a good opportunity to prove herself, but she couldn't find a person to celebrate it with. Just as she sighed and sighed, the phone rang suddenly. It turned out to be Harold who called. Seeing Harold was calling, Elsa didn't want to pick it up. She didn't have a good impression of Harold, and she could see that Harold's motive was nothing more than to get close to her and achieve the purpose of attracting her. However, she really didn't have any interest in such people, so she hung up the phone directly. But Harold persevered. After a few consecutive times, Elsa reluctantly picked it up and asked coldly, "Harold, are you okay?" Harold hurriedly said, "Elsa, I heard that you were transferred to the sales director." Elsa asked in surprise, "Wow, you are so well informed." Harold smiled and said, "I happen to have a few friends working in your emigrant group. They said they had received new appointments from the company, so they told me." "Yet," Elsa said, "I am now the sales director." "Congratulations! Congratulations!" Harold said excitedly, "This position is with real power, and there is a lot to do. You are really lucky this time." Elsa said lightly, "Thank you." Harold said again, "Elsa, you see, you have been in Aurous Hill for some time. The previous time in Classic Mansion, the trouble was quite unpleasant. In order to express my apology, I want to invite you to dinner again. Just today you have moved to the post of sales director again. It is a happy day. It should be celebrated. What do you think?" Elsa said, "But I might have to work overtime tonight." Harold said, "Elsa, this happy event is to be celebrated in time. Otherwise, you won't feel this joy tomorrow. You don't have many friends in Aurous Hill. I would not as well just find a place for the two of us to celebrate. What do you think?" Elsa was slightly moved. To be honest, she really wanted to celebrate. However, Claire couldn't come, and she didn't know who to celebrate with for a while. Now that Harold took the initiative to call, he could be regarded as giving himself a choice. Although Harold is a bit hypocritical, it is better for two people to celebrate than one. Thinking of this, Elsa said, "Then you can send me the address." "Okay, I've made a reservation at the Aurous Hill Hotel. After you arrive, just report my name." Elsa nodded and said, "Okay, then I'll be over in a while." Elsa left the company and took a taxi to the Aurous Hill Hotel. Although it is not as good as classic mansion, it can be regarded as one of the top restaurants in Aurous Hill. At this time, Harold was wearing a suit, arranging his oily head, and standing at the door with a gentle manner, waiting for Elsa. However, the bandage on his hand completely destroyed the atmosphere he deliberately created. Elsa's upper body casual clothes, lower body jeans, a youthful scene. The moment she got out of the car, she attracted all her eyes. Harold and Eurongian hurriedly greeted them and said, "Elsa, you are looking so beautiful today, please come in, you are all ready." "Thank you." Elsa smiled politely. The two were seated and soon the food was served. Harold asked the waiter to bring a bottle of top-notch red wine and complimented him, "Elsa, today is a great day, so you have to drink something to celebrate." Elsa hurriedly said, "Don't drink the wine, let's have something else." "How about that?" Harold originally wanted to take the opportunity to get Elsa drunk and see if he could find a chance to start, but Elsa refused to drink as soon as he came up with this idea, which made him extremely disappointed. Elsa waved her hand and said, "I'm sorry Harold, I'm not feeling well, so I really don't drink it anymore. I will drink some when I have a chance next time." In fact, Elsa can probably guess Harold's intentions, and her self-protection awareness is relatively strong, so she made up her mind not to drink with Harold tonight. Harold couldn't help but feel depressed when he saw that he could not persuade her, but he didn't dare to show it. Elsa nodded, "Thank you for understanding." At this moment, sitting at the table next to them, a young man who looked gentle was staring at Elsa forever. After Elsa came in, he was attracted by Elsa's appearance and temperament. In his opinion, this woman is really too beautiful, and she has an extraordinary temperament, just like a fairy coming to the world. After observing for a while and discovering that this woman and the man opposite her were not a couple, the young man decided that he should not miss this opportunity. After a while, the young man stood up, walked to the table of Elsa and Harold, and said to Elsa, "Hey lady, since you entered the hotel, I fell in love with you at first sight. I don't know if you want to stay. Give me a contact number." Elsa was stunned. She didn't expect that she would meet someone who strikes up directly. Harold was also very hot. "DMN, where did the silly fork pop up? Didn't you see that I was with this girl? You dare to come up and flirt with her, you fucking want to die?" So, before Elsa could speak, he said coldly, "Who are you? What are you doing here at our table?" The young man said lightly, "What does it have to do with you when I talk to this lady?" After that, he said to Elsa again, "Lady, I just stared at you for a long time. I didn't want to take the liberty to disturb you, but I was really moved by you. I came here for fear of missing this opportunity, so please forgive me." Harold exploded immediately, "DMN, what kind of dog, dare you steal a woman from me?" So he immediately yelled, "I warn you, it's best to stay away if you know. If you dare to talk or peek, I will gouge your dog eyes." The young man turned to look at Elsa and asked, "Your boyfriend?" Elsa shook her head. The young man turned his head to look at Harold, and said, "Since you are not her boyfriend, then I can confess to this beautiful woman. It has nothing to do with you, right? Harold sneered and said, I don't like you watching her, you can't watch her. The young man frowned and said, you seem to be awesome. Harold sneered, boy, I'm from the Wilson family, stay away from me, don't cause trouble to yourself. Elsa felt a little disgusted. She didn't like this young man's direct confession. Secondly, she doesn't like Harold's attitude of being the number one in the world. At this moment, the young man's face changed suddenly, staring at Harold and said coldly, what is the Wilson family? What are you? I warn you, if you pretend to be so with me, or I will let's see. Harold gritted his teeth immediately, and his heart was already extremely angry. Anyone really dares to pretend to be forceful? The first time he invited Elsa to dinner, he lost his face once. This time, if he doesn't give him some color, and then gets embarrassed again in Elsa's face, it would be even more useless to chase her. Thinking of this, he said nothing, picked up the wine bottle on the table, and yelled, what are you talking nonsense here? You are going to die. After all, a bottle hit the young man's head. With a bang, the other party's blood flowed. The young man was smashed by him, and he was dizzy and almost untenable. The people around were also taken aback by this sudden use of wine bottle. Harold stared at the young man with blood on his face and sneered, if you don't get out, I will break your leg. The young man gritted his teeth, covered his head, and said, okay, you have guts, you wait for me. After that, the young man clutched his smashed head and ran out in a hurry. Harold laughed disdainfully, and said, fool, dare you to threaten me? I don't even ask, who is Harold afraid of in this city? After speaking, he deliberately said to Elsa with a smug look, Elsa, there are such flies everywhere, don't be affected by him, let's continue to eat and leave him alone. Elsa was not in a good mood after being so disturbed, she nodded and did not speak. During the meal, Harold tried to invigorate the atmosphere several times, but Elsa didn't catch it. In her eyes, Harold was not only incapable but also a little too reckless. Such a man couldn't stay in her eyes. Harold originally thought that by standing up to that man directly in front of Elsa, should subdue her, but never expected that Elsa seemed to be a little more repulsive and disgusted with him. This made him feel particularly depressed. He didn't expect that Elsa didn't like men who use violence. Isn't this shooting himself in the foot? For a meal, Harold was extremely depressed. He had just finished eating. He originally wanted to chat with Elsa a few more words to increase his relationship. As a result, Elsa frowned and said, it's late, I have to go back, thank you for your hospitality. Harold was depressed and said, then I will drop you. Elsa shook her head, no, I will just take a taxi. At this time Elsa just wanted to quickly draw a line with Harold. Harold was very angry, and said, then I will join you to the car, otherwise. Elsa did not refuse, nodded, and got up and walked out. Harold hurriedly followed. He suffocated his stomach and wanted to make a romantic date. He took the opportunity to confess to Elsa, but he didn't expect that him to ruin everything, there was no chance at all, and he seemed to have left a bad impression on Elsa. If I meet him again, I must kill him. Harold cursed bitterly. At this moment, Charlie had just finished eating and was clearing the dishes. Claire said anxiously at this time, "Charlie, there is a supplier quotation document in my bag, have you seen it?" Charlie shook his head, "I haven't touched your bag since I came back." Claire thought for a while before she patted her forehead and said, "Oh, the documents should have fallen in the meeting room of the emigrant group. I have to use them tomorrow morning. Or you can drive me to fetch them." Charlie smiled and said, "You are so tired. Take some rest. I'll get it for you." Claire sighed and said, "I am really exhausted, so please do it for me. The document number is GY20191101. Charlie waved his hand and said, "It's not a big deal." After that, Charlie drove to the Wilson group. Here, Harold and Elsa had just left the hotel and came to the roadside. Elsa was about to take a taxi, and at this moment, 3 white vans parked on the side of the road, and a dozen strong men suddenly got off and rushed over aggressively. The dozen or so people are all black cloth masked, holding steel pipes, and they are here to seek revenge. Not good. When Harold saw so many people running towards him, he was half dead in shock. Elsa also saw this scene, and her face paled in shock. She guessed that this group of people must be the young man who had just sought revenge. Looking at this posture, she was afraid that they would kill her. Sure enough, a young man with gauze on his head stood up and shouted, "That is the asterisk." As soon as the voice fell, everyone immediately rushed towards Harold with an order. "I am the young master of the Wilson family. You dare to touch me?" Harold was flustered and yelled pretentiously. A strong man smiled contemptuously and slammed a steel pipe at him when he came up. Harold was so frightened that he almost wet his pants. At this time, he was shocked and suddenly pushed Elsa out. Elsa uttered an "ah," and she pushed him to the other side. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Harold ran to his car, opened the door, and sat in, then started the car and fled the scene without hesitation. Elsa is about to explode. This Harold is really a asterisk. He caused the trouble himself, but at the critical moment, he, a big man, actually pushed her, a woman, to block the gun and ran away? In this world, can you find another like him? Seeing Harold running away, the young man cursed. He dropped the woman and ran away by himself. What a waste! Finally, he looked at Elsa and said coldly, "Beauty, call that him back to me, otherwise, don't accuse me of being rude to you." Elsa blurted out, "I don't know him well, please don't involve me in your affairs." The young man pointed to his head holding the gauze and said coldly, "I have 16 stitches on my head. I can't breathe, I can't eat anything. If he doesn't come to save you, you can tell me. Going home and letting Mr. cool off for a whole night is the compensation you have to pay." Elsa blurted out, "How can you do this? This is illegal." "Illegal?" The young man said coldly, "My words are the rule. After I finish you, you will find out what is legal and what is not." Elsa felt cold for a while, and her panic and despair almost obliterated her. She hurriedly said, "I'll call him now." After that, she took out his cell phone and called Harold. Harold was driving desperately, thinking that the farther he could escape, the better, when he suddenly saw Elsa calling him, and his heart shook. "That's it. What bad luck," He also said to get in touch with her and build a relationship with the Dong family, so that the family can ascend up. This is all right, Elsa has been severely offended. However, how dare he answers the phone at this time? Answering the phone is nothing more than going back, even fools can guess the next step. But, do you still have a life when you go back? The gang is aggressive and they also carry steel pipes. Even if they don't take his life, he is afraid he will be disabled for life. Women are important, but life is more important. So he decided to continue to escape, regardless of her call. Elsa couldn't get through, and she was desperate. She pleaded to the young man, "I can give you money, please let me go. It's really none of my business." The young man grinned and said, "I don't want your money. I want your body." Elsa was so scared that she knew that if she didn't do anything, this person would not let her go. So, while the other party was not on guard, she bit her silver teeth and kicked between the young man's legs. The young man didn't expect that she would dare to resist. He was kicked straight in the crotch, his body moved with a scream of pain, and subconsciously waved his hand, stabbing her with a knife. Elsa was about to escape, when she felt a sharp pain in her thigh. She screamed and fell to the ground. A sharp dagger pierced her leg with blood flowing out. "Smelly lady, you want to run?" The young man became angry and grabbed her by the hair, and said with a sneer, "Congratulations, your success has angered me. Tonight, my brother and I will take good care of you." Elsa shed 2 lines of tears in despair. She had declared her death sentence in her heart. She knew that this young man would not let her go, and she was afraid that she would really die in his hands. In this case, it is impossible for anyone to save her. She had never noticed that at this time, a black BMW car was gradually approaching. Charlie, who was driving, saw her at a glance, frowning suddenly. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.